Want to know how elite tax advisors win the due diligence game to satisfy ultra high net worth clients who expect the very best? Welcome to the Due Diligence Project podcast, where you get a chance to learn from the elite CPAs, virtual family office professionals, and tax specialists who are doing just that. We'll uncover their insider secrets on how they are dominating their competition, vetting new ideas, and supercharging their due diligence process to deliver extraordinary results. Bringing his 25 plus years of experience with top tax professionals across the country, please welcome your host, Alex Sunkin.
All right, welcome to the Due Diligence Project podcast. We are so excited to have today's guest, Mr. John Power. John is an elite CPA, virtual family office with best-in-class peer-reviewed resources, and John serves ultra-high net worth clients all around the country, delivering incredible value to them. Today, we're going to get a chance to dive into John's brain and see how he does it, how he operates his elite virtual family office, and how he's able to create incredible value for his high net worth clients. John, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alex. Great to be here.
Thanks for being here, my friend. So let's just jump right into it. What can you briefly describe what you do, the people you serve, the kind of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for help?
Okay, sure. I'd say the primary people that I work with are business people, owners of closely held businesses. They're going to typically have a tax liability in excess of $100,000 a year or more, and they're concerned about paying that level of taxes and are looking for ways to in many cases significantly reduce that. That would be the primary focus of my practice.
And I know you do a great job doing that. What's changed? You probably didn't start the business last year. You look like you've been in the business for a couple of years.
Years.
But what's changed since you first got started?
Oh, wow. A lot. Obviously, technology has changed dramatically. Doing some of the things that we do today, things like this, obviously were not even dreamt of almost 40 years ago. The resources that are available to somebody like myself, almost 40 years ago, it was difficult for a small practitioner to try to compete with a big eight at that time or a large regional firm. And I think now, in many ways, it's easier for us to compete with them because we have access, internet access and Zoom meeting, things like that we can literally work with both clients and experts any place in the country.
You're being very humble. When you say compete with them, in many situations, you're not just competing with them, John. You are dominating and winning and creating incredible value that they cannot do as your big competitors. Talk about that a little bit. Talk a little about that.
I think one of the problems, if for lack of a better word, that a big firm has is, and I think it's as the larger you get, the less you focus on the client's needs and the more you focus on the needs of the firm. Minimizing liability for the firms. So it's very difficult, and you also become more and more removed from the client at the level where people are going to be, maybe have those kind of abilities and knowledge of advanced tax planning, for example. They're not working with the client. It's a much lower level typically, and as the review process is usually more about ticking and tying to make sure numbers have been put someplace right than really looking at, what are the issues for the client and how can we help them? And like I said, I think the larger the firm grows, the bigger it's more about protecting the firm than being proactive for the client.
You make a really, really good point. Yeah. When you have nothing to lose, or you're trying to build a business, you are scratching and you're trying to do something to create value. You're trying to do something to differentiate yourself. Now these big firms are making a lot of money. They're very, very comfortable. And all of a sudden it's no longer day one. We're comfortable. How do we protect our what we've built for ourselves as a firm. That we know that doesn't work well for Toys R Us trying to compete with. Initially, it was Walmart, and then now it's Amazon, and now there's no competition. Toys R Us got stuck focusing on themselves and their own success and protecting it, and they forgot about the customer.
Right.
And I think that's really what you're getting at. So you being a small firm, it's family owned, small firm, your name is on it, your ego's involved, you want to do the best that you can. And now we live in a world where all of a sudden you have access to these resources that you don't have to fly around the country to find them, and you're able to deliver.
Right.
That must feel amazing. Like when you deliver an amazing result for your client, give us an example of something. Like, you don't have to go into too much detail, but as much as you want to, what happened? How did it happen? How did it make you feel? How did it make your client feel?
Well, I think a real good example was a case I worked on this summer, where I started looking at information for a prospect, and this particular business had a lot of overseas, foreign sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that first comes to mind is, well, an IC disc might be something that would work for them.
Sure.
And I looked at it, and in fact, they had one. But when I was looking at it, I could, I'm not an IC disc expert. I know what they are. I know what the benefits are, but I could look at it and see, they're just scratching the surface in the amount of tax benefits they're getting. So, I went to one of the experts that I work with in that area, had him look at it, and the answer was yes, they are grossly undercalculating this. Net result was over $800,000 of refunds for the client. So, wow. Yeah, that makes me feel pretty good. It makes the client feel pretty good too.
Yes, you put $800,000. You put the $800,000 into your client's pocket by looking at something that another IC disc expert did. Right. You looked at it, brought your own resource in, looked at it. You're not an expert, but you're able to kind of see this doesn't add up properly. Let me have my experts, my team go in there, best in class, peer reviewed. Let's have them analyze it. And then the result was you were able to create an extra $800,000.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It was a large, well over 100-member firm. Mm-hmm. But again, the person doing the work for that company was not a senior partner, was not an advanced tax planner. Yeah. He's doing the best he can, but if you don't know what you don't know. And, it was really probably gone over their head. And instead of going out and looking for that best-in-class resource to really maximize the benefit.
It's amazing when we create these podcasts and we're interviewing some of our specialists, we're interviewing some of our top virtual family offices like you, and they share stories about the kinds of results that our community members are able to achieve, and some of these big firms are not even able to come close. It really points to this big dark black hole inside of tax planning, where less than 20% of the Fortune 500 companies are able to zero out their tax return, and the other 82% are not. And these are the most 500 most profitable, highest revenue generating companies in the world, where less than 20% of their tax planning teams are able to produce an amazing result, and the other 82% result is very, very different. And so it just seemed like when you just shared that story, it's like, wow, how can there be such a variance out there in terms of results? And I think the answer is due diligence in terms of identifying here you identified IC disc as a solution. The client already had someone recommend IC disc. They said, okay, that's good. So you guys are all on the same page. Okay. But the results were so different. I mean, $800,000 to some people is not really, they won't walk across the street for $800,000. But for some people, $800,000 is more money that they might never see in their lives. Right. So both said IC disc, but you and your best-in-class resource came in and found $800,000. The other group did not. I mean, how do you explain
that? That's a good question.
We may not be able to in the time we have in this podcast, but if you can't explain it, give us an avenue to explore, because this is the kind of stuff that I think our audience really needs to understand. because they're limited to a view of the financial world they live in this little box, and they're little prisoners in this box, and they've got their financial advisor, their traditional CPA, their attorneys over here, and they live in this box, and they just know what's in the box. And we want to show them what's outside this box.
Right.
And so, you've been doing this for 40 years, John. What's going on?
I think a big part of it is most firms are so focused on compliance, which is important. That's what people are hired for. But you don't have time when you're doing compliance. Tax season is a terrible time to do tax planning, typically for most firms, because you're focused on getting compliance work done. You don't know. I think many firms try to identify issues that we're going to follow up on. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But when you're so focused on compliance, you can't think of it's harder to look at the big picture and to identify issues, to have enough knowledge to identify the issues and to think about this might apply to this client, and then go out and find the resources. It's kind of a daunting task. If I had to go out and start interviewing 15 IC disc firms or 15 cost seg firms, I can certainly find them, but it's hard to differentiate them based on just a conversation. So you're right. The due diligence process is really key, because we each have to decide what kind of strategies we're comfortable with and who we're comfortable working with.
It's interesting. Let's talk more about due diligence, because one of the things that we really appreciate about you, John, is not only are you a member of our community and you use our resources and you use our resources to make yourself look good and deliver incredible value to your clients, but you also are very serious about due diligence, just like all of our members. But you take it to another level that we really appreciate. You ask us to always set up one-on-ones with our with our resources. I get a chance to be there and listen to those conversations. Sometimes we record those conversations. You put a lot of pressure on some of our specialists to make sure every one of your questions is answered to your satisfaction.
Right.
And tell us about that process. How you do where when are you confident? How do you get confident before you recommend something to your client?
In almost any strategy, I try to look at it very step back and look at it not skeptically. I mean that's and not cynically, but with an open mind. That I'm looking for both the things that I find attractive and the things that raise questions. Again, I've been in practice for a long time. I've been fortunate to be able to do a lot of things and work in a variety of areas. So I'm at least conversant in a lot of strategies. And so then when I see something, if something, it comes kind of bottom line, does it make sense? And that's where I start from. So if something doesn't make sense to me, doesn't mean it's wrong, but it does mean I'm going to ask a question.
And, you have a tremendous, like I said, many, many years, 30, almost 40 years of experience, seeing the IRS's, feedback on so many different types of plans, so many different types of ways of mitigating taxes. So, that's what we appreciate is that experience. So when you look at something, your questions, your background, give a weight to that. And what we found is every CPA is doing their own version of what you're talking about. And so when we have you do the due diligence on a strategy that maybe 200 other CPA firms have looked at, you're going to put it through your own system, your own stringent system of due diligence. And maybe there's going to be a question that comes up. Maybe you're going to add something new, and we expect you to, because you have that brain power and experience to do that. And that adds value to our community. So a new CPA comes in, maybe he's a former KPMG guy, maybe he's a former Anderson guy or gal, and they look at something that you've reviewed. Their independent eyeballs is an asset to our community, because they might find something that you missed.
Absolutely.
We were talking this morning about the son of boss transaction, that got so many people in trouble. And this was about 15 years ago, John?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And it came from one of the big firms. And, we were discussing and surmising of how that happened. And because we get questions from new firms joining us going, well, we get what you do. It sounds amazing, but how do we avoid something like that? Well, I'm saying, well, listen, back then when that big firm brought that transaction to the table, there weren't 200 independent elite CPAs looking at that strategy and asking questions. There was just a big firm. One of the partners recommended it. They needed to generate profits, so they were there to sell it. And then, the low-level W-2 employees of that firm are not going to try to, cause problems, be like, hey, we found some questions that we need answered before we start selling this thing, because they're going to be worried about getting fired. So this is an example of a big boxy firm with groupthink, and the groupthink did not eliminate their risk. So we just are so excited about you, and you're independent. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm going to do my own independent due diligence, but it's very helpful for me to see what everyone else is saying, so I can look at their feedback questions and add mine on top of it. So talk about how that helps you.
I'm not having to start. Well, yeah, because I don't have to start from scratch. I mean, there's already been a partial. Excuse me for interrupting, but there's already been a partial vetting, obviously, or you wouldn't be bringing them to us. So that's a kind of the first level. It's not going out and trying to find, again, the best fill in the blank promoter or provider of a certain strategy. There's a level of confidence that that person is already somebody that I have an initial level of confidence of working with. That doesn't mean I don't ask hard questions. That's part of my job, and what my clients deserve. But again, I don't have to go scouring the country to find the best R&D credit or best IC disc or best cost seg or whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your IC disc situation, it's like, you both identified IC disc as the answer, but one group stopped short in their due diligence process by identifying the very, very best IC disc specialist.
Right.
So they found IC disc is the answer. We're going to use our local IC disc person who is $800,000 off your IC disc person or our IC disc person, and that, so we look at all these levels of due diligence, because there's a level of making sure we're introducing the right resources, and then making sure we're doing, many, many levels of due diligence on the actual strategy, including the person implementing it. And what kind of experience has the other CPA firms or family offices clients had with this person? How do we compare that to what else is out there? This is what we talk about. That's hard. That's hard to do, because none of it's not all brought to us in one convenient area like an Amazon app, right? Is bringing you, hey. So this is really what, this is what the Due Diligence Project and the Virtual Family Office Hub and our membership is all about. Your clients are extremely lucky to have you, because of just how serious you are about every area of that due diligence process. But how do you create space and time to do that, to manage your practice, to do planning? Talk about that, because I know a lot of CPAs have way too many clients, or they're buried in too much compliance work to do all this fun, amazing, valuable stuff.
That's the hardest part. I made a decision a couple of years ago to focus more in this area. I limit my client base. I limit some of the services that I provide. In many cases, for example, when I enter into a tax planning engagement, I'm more than happy to work with an existing CPA. They can continue doing the compliance work. I don't want to. Sometimes, like the example I gave this summer, it would have been very difficult for the client to go back to that CPA firm, because they had done such a poor job. So I agreed to take that on, but I limit that new compliance kind of clients to a handful or so every year, so that I can create some space to do the planning for both new clients and for existing clients. But that's the challenge, without a doubt.
Got it. Tell us something interesting about yourself that that your clients don't know about you.
A lot of them, because I can, you say I'm very serious, but I also can be very outspoken and aggressive in some ways. I would say it's assertive, but some of my friends wouldn't use all of the letters of assertive when they describe me. But a lot of people would probably be surprised that along with that quirks of my personality, I do a fair amount of pulpit supply for in my local synod. So it's a facet of my life that I enjoy and get a lot of satisfaction out of, but not what many people might expect from me.
Well, I know you're a big family man. I've had the pleasure of meeting your wife, your lovely wife. A wonderful family. I know your clients are very, very lucky to have you. I know that because of technology, you can now serve clients all around the world, which is really, really cool. And they don't have to be right next door to where you live. And so that's awesome. I mean, let's just finish this thing up. The question is, can big traditional CPA firms or big traditional law firms or big traditional family offices compete with you and your practice and your network?
Can they? Sure. Will they? No.
Why not?
For all the things we talked about. It's just the institutional structure just keeps them from doing it. They're not set up to become intimately knowledgeable enough about the client at the level, the personnel level where they have that knowledge to really provide those services to the client. It's an institutional, a structural thing that I just don't see that they can overcome.
So what you're saying is you haven't just let the business push you. You've taken steps and made decisions to lighten the load, focus on ultra high net worth business owner clients, create time and space, plug in the due diligence project, access best in class resources, and create that time and space to get close to your clients, find out intimately what they need, what they want, and make sure you have enough time to be able to deliver on that. And also inclusive doing your own due diligence on the strategies that you're accessing from the hub that's already been vetted out by over 200 independent people just like yourself.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's what's cool. And what does your confidence level mean for your clients and your future clients?
What I hope it means is it gives them confidence. If I come to someone with an idea, they can be confident that I think it's in their best interest, first of all, and that I'm going to discuss the pros and cons about it. Because many things, there's risks and rewards to almost everything. That I'm always going to be upfront with them. I'm always going to be honest with them. Again, I think it's true of most CPAs, but it's always been kind of the firm mantra that that we live by is the client's interests come first, and that's there's really no step two there.
Look, there's a reason why many years ago when we decided that the financial service industry needed a little change. And we were questioning why Wall Street chose the stockbroker to build investment banking underneath stockbrokers, right? We fast forward now, we're like, wow, these are not really the most trustworthy people on the planet as a group. I'm not saying they're all not trustworthy, but as a group, Bernie Madoffs of the world were built Wall Street. We decided, hey, of all the players in the financial service industry, we want to rebuild the family office underneath, not the mergers and acquisitions guy, not the stockbroker, not the financial advisor, not the attorney, not the money manager, but elite CPAs with a tax focus, because that's the majority of the work that happens inside these family offices. And that group of people seem to be extremely trustworthy. Their due diligence, they take it very, very seriously. The client's interest always come first. And I mean, this is not 100%. I wouldn't say 100% of CPAs operate like this, but the vast majority do.
I think so.
And so, yeah, this is why the marriage makes so much sense. So by making sure that those most trustworthy people have access to efficient access to due diligence and efficient access to the very, very best, most vetted resources on the planet, they could do the best job for clients because they're not going to gouge their clients, they're not going to overcharge for the services. They're going to just do an amazing job with the best resources and focus on making sure the client's interests always come first, which is really what we found is one of the issues out there. But by rebuilding, restructuring the family office underneath the CPA and making it virtual, best in class, it seems a lot of those problems are not coming up, and all of a sudden these amazing results are starting to happen. And we've been perfecting this for the last 12 years that I've been involved, and this was started another 10 years before I got here. So we're really, really blessed to have you as part of our group, John. We look at you as a key member, not just because you're using the services, you're contributing in many different ways to the community. Our community's benefiting quite a bit from you being a part of it. And if we can find more of you out there, we'd be happy to interview and see if they qualify to join us. But thank you so much for your time and attention. I'm excited about your clients' future with you and your future clients' future with you, John. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. And thanks, Alex.
Pleasure. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.
All right.
That's all for this episode of the Due Diligence Project podcast. Be sure to visit duediligenceproject.com to access the resources we have available for qualified CPAs and family office leaders. Our mission at the Due Diligence Project is to help you deliver more significance and value to your very best clients while shifting your traditional practice into the firm of the future.